I know he can run like Forrest Gump, but I need to see if he can throw like Joe Montana. How can you look at your players and talk to them about responsibility? But Brian Harsin so far at Auburn has failed.
Welcome to the Jboy Show, hosted by Jake Crane.
What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a great Thursday. Thank you guys for joining us. Really excited about today's show. Joined, as usual, by David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, and my brother, who's not my former brother, still my brother. At least that's what they told me, Blaine Crane. I want to start in the college football world with some news that was made by a head coach of one of the most prominent schools, one of the biggest up-and-coming schools, especially in the recruiting space. Jimbo Fisher went off a little bit yesterday when talking about NIL, name, image, and likeness. We've seen it in college football. Going to dive into that a little bit more with the transfer portal and what that means. But a lot of coaches are kind of hinting, whether it's Lane Kiffin coming out and saying that NIL had a huge deal to do with a certain school having a number one recruiting class. We have that clip of Jimbo Fisher getting after it a little bit. I love it. I love transparency. Let's roll that clip. Jimbo is 50 shades of piss. Let's see what he said.
You ever been to a game here? You ever come to school here and see the education? You ever talk about the 12th man, the Aggie Network when you're done? There ain't a better university in this country. And it's insulting to what you say. And all these, and we got writers who have said it and done it off sliced bread. A guy named Slice who made it up. Love to see who sliced bread is and put it out there with sliced bread. Let me find out where it comes from. And then to have coaches in our league and across this league to say it, clown acts. All right? Irresponsible as hell. Multiple coaches in our league. And the guys griping about NIL, griping about transfer portal, using it the most and bragging about it the most. That's the ironic part.
Yeah, Jimbo, to me, and look, you got to defend yourself. You got to defend your staff. I think he handled it in a good way. It's going to get his players fired up. It's going to get his coaching staff fired up. It's going to get the fan base fired up. But what he's really getting at, and look, let's not beat around the bush. NIL had a big deal to do with a lot of schools having success. A&M is one of the schools that has a ton of resources, and if you're smart, use them. And they did. But that's not the only reason that they signed one of the top classes. Jimbo has a staff full of guys that are elite recruiters. You can tell they're coming up. They're next up. They're really not afraid to jump into space and do some things. They've got unbelievable facilities. He talked about the 12th man there in Aggie land. It's an incredible experience, incredible home atmosphere. They beat Bama this year. But to me, the biggest part was talking about the coaches within the league. Lane Kiffin, obviously. You heard Nick Saban talking about it. Some other coaches kind of pushing the envelope. So I don't think Jimbo was going to come out and say, you know what, they're right. You guessed it. It was NIL was the only reason. You've got to defend your staff. You've got to defend what you have going on and defend your land. But the way, the aggressiveness is a better way to put it in my mind, of saying, if you keep looking at that clip, if you go look at the whole clip, he's telling them, well, if you got a problem with me, you know where I'm at. Come find me. But calling other coaches clowns, I don't know about you, but where I'm from, if you call somebody a clown, that's just not a passing joke. That's not something that's ha-ha, funny. You know, to quote Joe Pesci, I'm funny how? I'm funny how? How am I funny to you? I'm a joke to you? So I think you're going to see a little bit of a clapback from Lane Kiffin. But to me, all this talk about NIL, I'll give you a hint. I hate to burst the bubble of people that think that college football before NIL was as pure as it gets. You know, like everybody's walking around with purity rings. People were getting paid a lot more than what you hear some of these numbers that are being thrown around for NIL. I promise you. And everybody was doing it. There's an old saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And it's a way of life. It was what the market was bearing. Now with NIL, you're just seeing some of it in public. But in my opinion, NIL is not the most detrimental thing that has been changed in the game of college football in the past couple of years. To me, the transfer portal, being able to not have to pay a price if you're going to transfer within conference, I've got no problem if you want to transfer from the SEC to the Pac-12, if you want to transfer from the Big Ten to the ACC, if you want to go to Wonka's factory to Narnia, I don't give a damn. But when you're going to let people transfer, not only within conference, but within division, which we've seen, Eli Ricks goes from LSU to Bama. Jermaine Burton goes from Georgia to Bama. Two teams that just played in the Natty, and you're instantly eligible. To me, that's a bigger detriment as opposed to paying student athletes, which was already happening. So when you look at the grand scheme of this, Jimbo said what he had to say. But make no mistake, NIL had something to do with it, but it didn't have everything to do with it. And we're going to spend most of our time in the college football landscape complaining and worrying about NIL while the transfer portal slips in here and ruins everything. Free agency is a lot worse than paying guys. I'm a firm believer if the head coach leaves, you should be able to go anywhere you want. The one-time transfer rule is fine, but it can't be within the conference. You want to talk about tampering? Imagine all this, and you're going to see these scenarios that get played out. The transfer portal will be way more detrimental to college football than NIL will ever be. Cone, what do you think?
Look, college football is in a vulnerable state right now. I still think that NIL will be more problematic moving forward because I think the transfer portal, that's the easiest thing to solve to me. And I'm just hoping that it can be solved. I think we're in a situation right now where the NCAA is just saying, okay, players wanted to get played. They felt like they were exploited. They wanted to be able to transfer anytime they could. So we're just going to let it be the wild, wild west right now. And I don't see them trying to solve these problems. I mean, to me, the transfer one is the easiest to solve right now. What I would do is say, hey, stay at a university for 2 seasons, right? I mean, you're a young person who's just committed to a university. Stay there for 2 seasons.
You want 2?
I want 2 seasons. I know you guys are both in favor of 1. Yeah. Either way, I could live with either one of them, but stay for a full calendar year, preferably 2, unless the coach who recruited you leaves, okay? And then leave at any time for whatever reason, as long as it's not in the middle of the season, which they do have some of those guardrails, okay? But not in the same conference. If it's in the same conference, do what you had to do before, which is sit out a season, right? So, I don't see them I don't see the NCAA or the powers that be trying to solve these problems, and I'm hoping that we will be able to get to a point where the amateur essence of the game is preserved, so it doesn't just become another professional sport. This is why I was saying last year that it would be nice if one of these XFLs or USFL or something like that could be like a minor league farm system for the NFL, exactly what the G League is doing right now. Instead of these trying to compete with the NFL, be more of a farm system for that. And a lot of people push back, a lot of college football purists push back and say, well, then college football would miss out on some of the greatest athletes. But hey, if you don't want to be there, if you're one of those kids who feels that going to university is just exploiting you, then don't take part in it. When LeBron James and Kobe Bryant and Tracy McGrady didn't go to the NBA, it didn't water down March Madness those years for me. It's just the kids who want to be there can play. So look, college football is in a vulnerable state. I think we need to come up with some solutions before it goes so far off the rails that it's unrecognizable as the sport that we grew up loving and it just becomes a professional sport.
Well, and Blaine, I'm going to get you in a second, but to me what separates and makes the college game better is that more local feel. You can say the amateurism feel a little bit, but, having the more local feel as opposed to the NFL, which we know is a straight business. We know college football is a business too, but it hasn't been as narrow focus. Here's a couple rules that I have, Blaine. I think it's really easy. I mentioned one off the top of the show. 1, if you're going to transfer within the conference, you have to sit out a year.
I love that.
Doesn't matter if it's in the same division or the other division. Anywhere else, you're fine. You want to transfer down, you're fine. You want to transfer up. The second one, if you hire a position coach from another university, I don't care if it's in your conference or out of your conference, you can't sign get a transfer from that university for at least 2 years. People say, whoa. But we already have that rule with high school coaches. If you hire a high school coach at your college, because what coaches were doing was, you got the number 1 prospect? Well, I'm going to hire your high school coach to be an analyst or hire him to be the wide receivers coach or something like that. Now, what scares me, what I look at from being in that coaching world and seeing it and understanding it is, what if I'm team A, I'm playing against team B. We have 3 corners leaving, our starting corners, and then our third corner, we'll bring him in as a nickel sometimes on third and passing, dime guy, whatever. And I say, man, they have 2 freshmen over there that position coach signed that are really, really good. We have to flip our roster. We're not doing very well in recruiting right now at the position. We're looking at the transfer portal around there. It's not great. These are the guys we want. And you say, you know what? We're going to go hire that corners coach. And then he brings those 2 with him. To me, that is a huge problem. That is tampering in itself. And in the arms race, I mean, this is Gorbachev versus Kennedy.
Yeah,
what we're seeing right now.
It's
in
dirty.
the arms race of what college football is, there's a lot dirtier stuff that's happened than that. That is not even close to being beyond the pale compared to what we've seen. What do you think?
So you don't think the kids should have the option to leave if their position coach goes to another school?
No, to me, the only way that one-time transfer rule can change, or you can go anywhere. And this would be my kind of compromise or my carrot in the stick approach to people say, well, you should let them transfer in conferences. That's fine. The only time that you can transfer in conference, because outside of conference, I don't care. The only time you can transfer inside your conference to another school in that conference without paying a penalty is if that head coach leaves.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Because what does that mean? What if that head coach takes another job at a school in that conference and you want to go play for the guy that signed you? I've got no problem with that. That way you're protected through the jump. The integrity is protected in the conference.
Absolutely.
I just think
that's who you committed to.
Easiest way.
That's who you committed to.
But they won't do it. You want to know why? Because the NCAA, they never care about athletes.
Yeah.
That's what it stands for. But all they do is kick the can down the road. That's all they do.
If we're thinking about the NCAA to come here and fix problems, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you might as well call it Ghostbusters.
They never do. But the thing about me is, I always like as much options as these kids can have. And I think if you do sign to a school, you do sign to a head coach, but you sign to a position coach.
Sure.
I signed to a position coach when I was in college. That's what I did. I think if that position coach leaves, whether it's in conference or not, you should have the option to be able to leave.
I would be more malleable on that.
Okay.
I would be willing to compromise on that if you were to tell me outside of a coach leaving that you have to pay a penalty for transferring within the conference. I would be willing to compromise on that.
Yeah.
But that's too simple. It makes too much sense for college football to fix. Hell, they'll fix the fake slide rule before they'll fix anything with targeting.
Sure.
I mean, they finally decided to change. Well, we won't kick them off the sidelines there. Are you happy? But an offensive guy can lower his head and initiate contact. Defensive guy, you can barely touch anybody anymore. It's like it's turning into flag.
But I don't understand it. I don't understand why they can't solve these problems. I mean, say what you will about the NFL, and I say plenty. Okay, they at least solve bad problems most of the time. Like, for instance, when they wanted to try out reviewing pass interference. Like, the NFL really is good.
They're more
really is the
proactive
best.
on it. I agree.
Very proactive in terms of, you know what, we'll try this thing. And if it doesn't work, we can change it, moving the extra point back. I mean, at least they handle their business in that sense. College football and college sports in general is not, okay? One more word about Jimbo specifically. I mean, what he said, he pretty much had to say, right? We agree on that. He had to say on that. But I will say this. Whenever you're at the top of whenever a list gets made, and he ended at the top of that recruiting list yesterday, which is very impressive. Whenever you're at the top of something, people are going to come at you.
Yeah.
So I would almost prefer him to see him laugh it off and say, when you're at the top, they're going to come at you. They could have just ended it there. But here's the thing. Texas A&M fans are really eager to see, is this going to translate on the field? That's what they want to see. He stacked several big classes in a row, with this one being a number one, had a huge win last season over Alabama. Even though it was at home, you're going to have to go on the road a couple times this season. And as far as Lane Kiffin is concerned, these guys are going to see each other. They're going to meet at midfield and shake hands.
You lost to Lane last year.
I love it.
Yes, I do too.
I love it. And it's a great point. To me, it's a compliment showing where you're at when you're getting talked about by Nick Saban. And Jimbo is a protege off the coaching tree of Saban. But let's treat this like the NCAA does every problem and just move on. We got 5 big questions?
I have 5 big questions here. SEC football edition. We're going to stay on it here, okay? All right, so we're going to stay with Jimbo Fisher real quick here. Will Jimbo Fisher lead Texas A&M to the conference championship this next season?
No, I don't think he will. Not that they don't have the ability to, but I look at the schedule. I look at what Alabama has coming back. I mean, you've got Will Anderson coming back. Dallas Turner is going to be a freak on defense. This kid was a freshman last year that made a ton of big plays. You have your quarterback back. We know that young offensive line is getting better. People forget that offensive line class they signed was the greatest offensive line class in the history of the world and every other planet in the solar system, at least from what I've been told. So those guys are only going to get better and better. You brought in Coach Wolford from Kentucky, a guy that's a big-time offensive line coach. I still wonder about Haynes King. I know you picked him as a sleeper yesterday, but we have to see it from Haynes. We've seen a lot of guys get talked up. Injuries, part of the game. Hated to see it. He's got a ton of talent. I know he can run like Forrest Gump, but I need to see if he can throw like Joe Montana.
But Jimbo's going to need to get there at some point, right?
Well, what's acceptable? Because I know A&M fans that it's the whole 8-4, I'm not okay, you're not okay, but that's okay thing. That's out the door.
But yeah, when do the conversations become uncomfortable for Jimbo?
If they win 9 games next year, if they only win 9 games next year, not that there'll be whispers for him to be fired, but you're going to see that that seat get a little bit hotter. Because, look, they've checked everything off the list. Recruiting, facilities,
At least with the most.
momentum. And what's next on the list? You got to win the division.
Yes.
You got to be in the SEC championship game.
Yep.
Eventually, you have got to get over that. We talked about Georgia getting over the hump, right? Pun intended. A&M's next on the list. Georgia crossed it off since 1980. A&M hasn't won a national championship since Dunkirk.
And I think what hurts the most, too, is that they weren't able to win their division the year they did finally beat Alabama. I think they thought that those two things would go hand in hand. You beat Alabama, still didn't represent the West in the conference championship. And so now you're going to have to do it again if you want to get to the championship.
Yeah, and on the road.
For this next season especially, on the road. Let's stay in the SEC West. Who leaves their university first? Nick Saban or Lane Kiffin?
Oh, man, that's a great question,
Thank you.
Cone. Wow, you really went Encyclopedia Britannica on me right there. I would say Lane.
Okay.
Somebody is, and love what he's done at Ole Miss. I really like the fit at Ole Miss. I think Lane can be Lane. But if they go out, they just won 10 games. If they go out now with Jackson Dart coming over, we've seen, he's the portal king. We saw his face supplanted on Joe Exotic's Tiger King photo, which was absolutely hilarious. I think they have a chance to win another 9 or 10 this year. Somebody is going to come get this guy. Okay. Somebody at a really, really big place is going to take another flyer on Lane Kiffin. And if you look, because look, Saban losing this game, the national championship game last year, was the worst thing that could happen to college football outside of Alabama fans. Yeah. I really think if he won it, he'd have rode off into the sunset.
You think so?
I really think he'd have rode off into the sunset. He would have chalked it up. We did it again, this, that, and the other. I've got nothing else to accomplish. Now you just pissed him off. He was ready to get done, place at the lake. The grill's getting heated up. Let's win this thing. I'm going to leave it in a great place. I'm going to name my successor. Then Kirby, the second assistant in the same year. Remember, no assistant had ever beaten Nick Saban. The second assistant in the same year to beat him. So you remember the time you beat your dad in one-on-one basketball the first time, and then you played him again? It was a little bit different. I think Saban's coming back even harder, and he knows he's got the team. He's got the reigning Heisman winner. We talked about Will Anderson and the monsters they have on defense. I think he's going at least another 3.
Okay, well, let's stay on Alabama, and let's talk about something else he has right now, which is a little bit of a problem. Some breaking news this morning. Alabama DC Pete Golding arrested for a DUI. My question to you is, will he keep his job?
I think he will. What I don't understand is this, and I say this about any high-profile person. Pete Golding makes $1.5 million a year. He's not hurting for money. It's irresponsible as hell to drink and drive. We know that. But why don't you call an Uber? To me, it shows you must have really bad friends. Because I know what happened. You just had a great signing day. Look at the players he signed. Signed an unbelievable class. Him individually. Signed a bunch of big-time guys. So you went out, blew it out at a signing day party. How in the hell do you not have the wherewithal? To me, it's arrogance.
Yeah, untouchable.
It's arrogance. I'm untouchable. And if you look at his mugshot, he's hammered. Like, I've been drunk before. I think we've all been drunk before.
Yeah.
I can look at him. He was drunk. But how, I will never understand for high-profile people that can afford it. Hell, he could buy shares in Uber. He's got enough money. You don't call an Uber. You don't call a Lyft. You don't call a buddy. And I don't think you were there drinking by yourself. I don't think Pete Golding was sitting at a bar in Tuscaloosa at Northport just kicking him back in a corner like he's Don Corleone. How do your friends not say, Pete, well, what are you doing? But a bigger problem is, how can you look at your players and talk to them about responsibility and talk to them about doing what they're supposed to do when you're out here getting arrested and put in jail for a DUI? And you want to talk about negative recruiting?
Yeah.
Oh, that mugshot's going to be shown to a lot of recruits.
Have it printed out.
So if you're Nick Saban, I don't think he's going to fire him, but you lose a ton of respect not only in the coach's eyes, but in the player's eyes as well.
Mm-hmm. You think he'll be on the sideline?
Yeah, I do. Well, it comes down to this. I think you lock him in a room with Will Anderson for 15 minutes. And if he comes out alive,
That's his
he can
punishment.
keep the job.
Comes out alive.
Like, yeah, Coach Golding, Will Anderson's in room 3, and let's just put it this way, he is not happy.
Yeah, he's playing his R&B music, what he listens to before games.
Yeah.
15 minutes tops. And if you come out alive, congrats. You've learned your lesson.
Days.
You've learned your lesson. You want to talk about button up from there on? He won't make another mistake.
But I mean, imagine that feeling if you're Pete Golding, a name that has ascended in the ranks.
Yeah.
Being at Alabama, that helps a lot. And you sober up that next morning and realize what you just did. That hits 10 times worse than that.
I agree. I think it's arrogance.
I think it's arrogant.
Hopefully it was just a night out on the signing day and it's
Learn
not
from
a
it.
long-term problem.
Learn
Exactly.
from it.
Exactly.
You put everybody at risk.
All right, so let's stay in the West here. Since we've seen signing day get finalized yesterday, and we know Auburn's had some problems with the coordinators, will Auburn finish with a better record than last season? What do you say right now?
No. It's as negative as I've ever seen at Auburn. On signing day, you had 2 players hit the portal. You actually lost players on signing day. You went 0 for gopher, 0 for 4, the golden sombrero, as we call it in baseball. You struck out 4 times. And, and rumors will fly and that people will come out of left field. I'm not giving any cadence or amping that up until I find something concrete. But I'll say what I've been saying. The chaos is adding up at Auburn. And if it doesn't get fixed on the field, I mean, you have 8 receivers right now on roster. We talk about roster management all the time, right? It's one of the reasons Saban's so good. All these guys are so good as roster management. We talk about in the NFL all the time. You have 8 receivers on the roster right now. 5 of them haven't caught a pass. You have kids in state that are signing scholarships, offensive linemen, where Auburn hadn't. The struggle for Auburn to sign offensive linemen is one of the most baffling things I've ever seen. I'm not talking about guys in the portal. I'm talking about high school offensive linemen and develop them. Got Gus Malzahn fired. And Brian Harsin just came in and whiffed and whiffed and whiffed and whiffed. It was worse than Wisconsin shooting threes last night. We'll get to that later. But Brian Harsin so far at Auburn has failed. He has failed. And when you take a job like that, they don't put up with failure for a lot. And you have some people that are going to pump sunshine regardless. He could shoot somebody in the middle of the street and they'll say, like, well, it's fine, The
gun's fault.
Yeah, it's the gun's fault. But he better fix it, and he better get some offensive linemen from the portal, or he'll be in the portal.
They go to Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama.
5-7.
Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama.
5-7.
And Mississippi State.
Why, let him go 5-7. You know how much people love Bruce Pearl? Think about the opposite of that. That's how they'll feel about Brian Harsin. They're going to go 5-7 next year, the way it's looking right now, unless all of a sudden just some group of offensive linemen come out of the sea and just walk to Auburn from Gulf Shores.
Zach Calzada, man, the hero. He's going to do it.
Yeah, Zach Calzada and Robbie Ashford. Wow,
they're going to do it. Yeah,
you did great.
He's a tough kid who plays hard.
He's a tough kid who plays hard. I'll give you a hint. I'm going to give you guys a hint. And toughness you should never question anybody's toughness in football. It gets you through the door. When you hear commentators and analysts and they talk about a guy and the first thing they say is like, man, he's a tough kid. You know what that translates to? He's not that great. He just knows he's not that great, so he's super tough.
Especially the quarterback.
That's not the best attribute you can have. You know what I'd love him to say? He's a great passer and a great runner and a great quarterback. But no, he's tough. He's tougher than a $2 steak.
He does have a win over Alabama, and that's something Auburn fans like. All right, we'll move on to the East here. Will Georgia's path to the SEC championship be easier next season or more difficult?
More difficult. Now, heavy is the crown. The target was on your back last year, but you hadn't done it yet. Now you did it. Now you are officially on top of the mountain. You kicked Bama off the mountain. You supplanted them on the mountain. And this whole offseason, because to me, look, it's probably going to be Georgia and Bama again next year. Let's not beat around the bush like Jeb and George fighting in the front yard. But another big factor in this is you have to look at the SEC East. And I know there's crossover, and you play some teams from the West, and Georgia plays Auburn and this, that, and the other. But Tennessee is rising up.
At home.
At home. They play them in Knoxville?
No, they play them at Georgia.
They play them at Georgia. You have Tennessee that's coming up. Florida, Billy, it's going to take them a little bit of time, even though I think that was one of the sneakiest, best hires of the offseason. South Carolina and Shane Beamer, once he cleans the mayonnaise out of his eyes, and he's going to be able to keep seeing that vision through. They've added people in the portal. People are saying Shane Beamer won the portal.
Spencer Rattler,
we'll see. Maybe he's cleaned up his act a little bit. If you've ever watched the D1 quarterback show, we've talked about that.
Better than Zeb.
Not the biggest. Yeah, where's Zeb?
Yeah.
Where's Zeb Nolan? He's going to come back for an 8th year. But I think it's around him, around Georgia per se, it's going to be a little bit tougher. And it always is when you're on top of the mountain. We'll see how you handle prosperity. That's a big thing for me. I think it's going to be more difficult.
All right. I agree. You're losing all that experience on defense, and you can't teach experience. I mean, you just can't.
That's true. Nolan Smith coming back was big, but I mean, you lose.
Nakobe Dean.
NFL players all around. Yeah. Nakobe Dean was the straw that stirred the drink.
Yeah, for sure.
He was the quarterback.
Maybe your boy Stetson Bennett can save him, though, next year.
Well, hold on. Okay.
How's he not my...
Okay.
What's that mean?
You were the one, Blaine, that said they weren't going to win it because of Stetson Bennett.
Did they win it because of Stetson Bennett?
He was the quarterback.
They won it.
They won it.
Or did the
you said they weren't going to win it.
Or did the defense win it for Georgia?
You said they weren't going to win it.
I said Stetson Bennett wasn't going to be the reason they won it.
I never said he was
I just said he couldn't be the reason they lost it.
You said they couldn't win it because Stetson Bennett was a quarterback. You said that.
I said he wouldn't be the reason. I said he wouldn't be the reason they won it. And he wasn't the reason they won it. The reason they won it because they had the best defense to supposedly ever step on that side of the field.
You can do all the mental gymnastics you want.
I'm not.
I'm not.
It's the truth.
Okay, you're not SUNY Lee.
All right, we'll move on. But you do think Georgia will represent the East in the SEC championship?
I'm not picking against them.
Who would you pick?
I mean,
who would you take?
I get
it. It had to be Tennessee.
Tougher path, but they'll still...
Tougher path. Because
they got Oregon week 1.
All right. So,
and Oregon week 1, that's a good point. Yeah.
It seems as if...
Your boy.
Jim Harbaugh is going to now stay at Michigan. Your thoughts, please.
Well, congrats to him. He'll be able to come out and play in the second best rivalry in college football again.
Oh, whoa.
Is that a shot?
Whoa.
Are they throwing shots?
Cone, you know this. Deep down, you know this. Deep down in your heart, you know this.
Wow.
Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl is the best rivalry, and you have Ohio State and Michigan is the second best.
This smells like a head-to-head.
See, he has to do that kind of stuff.
This smells like a head-to-head.
He doesn't want the smoke.
He has to do that kind of stuff because he knows. He knows there's an inferiority complex.
Okay, we're doing it now.
Okay.
We're doing it now.
All right.
Okay. Here's the difference, and I've told you this before. It's one thing if you have a fight with your neighbor that lives across the street, because you can go back in the house, go back in your room, they can go in there and you can be separated. It's different when you have a fight with somebody that lives in the same house as you. Auburn and Alabama live in the same house. They're in the same state. They're not far away from each other. Ohio, I'm not a Geography B champion, but I do know that Ohio and Michigan are in different states.
That's what makes it tougher.
Michigan just won.
That's why they hate each other more.
Yeah, how does that work?
Because you are still Alabamian. See, you still
that makes it worse.
You vote for the same governor. You still have to pay taxes in the same state.
Nobody likes paying taxes.
That's still your state, okay? When you put a border between two people, two states, that hatred has no limit. There is no limit to that hatred. A literal border war was the creation of that rivalry.
Imagine if you fought in the border. War. In the border. You go downstairs, you make breakfast, you get punched in the face.
And Jim Harbaugh is from the city that border war was over, Toledo. So he should be the king that beats Ohio every year.
The House of Tyrell.
Thanks them, okay? Maybe that's what he's coming back for.
Well, and again, they just won one for the first time since Vietnam.
He's won 6 against
Vietnam.
But I will say this, though. I will say this. How, as a Michigan alum, I see Michigan fans are ecstatic to get Jim Harbaugh.
Ecstatic, elated.
To me, you signed on National Signing Day. It's not about the coaches signing on National Signing Day. You held Michigan hostage, and you have a top 10 class. Here, to me, and listen, I didn't want to do this, but we have exclusive footage.
We did get this, yeah.
We have exclusive footage of the meeting between the Minnesota Vikings and Jim Harbaugh. You're not going to find this anywhere, but this is when the Vikings let Jim Harbaugh know how it was going down. Enjoy, everybody.
We're not giving you the job. So, I respectfully withdraw my name from consideration. Do you accept my withdrawal? I do. Good. Very good. I am glad we are finally on the same page. Still have my job in Scranton, though. Yes.
You can only find that here.
You can only find that here. Next to being a fly on the wall. So
I still have my job in Scranton.
I want to throw this at you. That's good because I didn't want the job anyway, so I just like to withdraw my name. Blaine, I'll start with you.
Okay.
there's a few angles to look at this. We got a geometry class going on in here. Do you think, Jim Harbaugh went in there taking that interview, trying to use leverage against Michigan because he did take a pay cut after not having success last year? Or B, do you think he went in there and asked for the moon and they were like...
That's what I think.
No.
I think Harbaugh thinks he's a lot better looking than what he is.
He's one of those...
And from a guy who wears khakis and cleats, probably running around in the school where everyone can hear him, it makes sense. Right? It makes sense. I guarantee he walked in there. Because at Michigan, he can't do any wrong. He might have made a pay.
Not now.
He can't
He can't.
Yeah, he can't do anything wrong. So you're shooting somebody in the street. Jim Harbaugh could do that, and they'd put the other guy in jail. Yeah. That's what would happen. But I think he went to the Vikings and just asked for all control.
I want Minnesota.
Just full control on everything. And the Vikings, how about no?
Yeah.
Like, how about no? Like, what? You had one good, realistic year. You beat Ohio. You still lost to Michigan State.
Oh, wow. Blaine's saying Ohio now. You got him saying
That's true.
that.
Yeah. How about that? How about remind mouthing?
But
then you went in the playoffs, right? And it was like you were playing against Kofi Cockburn, right? Yeah. He just treated you like a little kid. But now we'll see. You're back at Michigan. They're so happy you're back. Everything's great.
Ecstatic.
Welcome back.
Elated.
Here's your khakis. Here's your cleats. And here's the no quarterback tag. You won't get drafted at Michigan. So good job.
Hey, to me, Conan, tell me if I'm wrong. To me, this feels like when you catch somebody cheating.
Yeah.
And you take them back because you're like, man, I don't want to go through having to go find somebody again. I got to go to like eHarmony or, Christian or don'tkickmyass.org. I mean, I don't know, whatever you call it. As a Michigan guy, should Michigan fans be ecstatic or erratic? See what I did there?
Neither, but not ecstatic. Ecstatic, elated, all the E-word adjectives. Where are y'all getting this? Look, let me start with the good stuff first. Michigan is probably in a better position now than they would have been if Jim Harbaugh left yesterday and you're scrambling so late in the process when all of the supply for head coaches who could potentially win at that level is dried up. Probably in a better spot, right? But at the same time, I just don't understand. Here's what I don't understand. We do this every year. The talks were a little bit more heated up this time that he was interviewing. But my thing is, Michigan is not a pit stop, right? The University of Michigan head football coaching job is not.
So it's not a good luck Chuck situation.
It's not a pit stop. So to me, it's like you either want to be there, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy who was an All-American for both Sheffield. This is either your thing or go to the NFL, and that's fine. We can be at peace with that. But I did hear that he told Ward Manuel, the AD at Michigan, when he said that he was going to remain there, that this is not going to be a reoccurring issue. But it has been.
Yeah,
it has been.
I'll never do it again.
In the words of Ron Burgundy, I don't believe.
Do you ever hear this? It's a distraction. That's what it is. This is a distraction. Now, if he was just posturing to get a better deal with Michigan, okay, I understand that a little bit. But look, you did that by having a great season. You had your best season. Go in there and say, look what I just did, and I'm going to build off that. That's why I need the big contract again. If it helps that you interviewed, well, I don't know how serious these talks were. I don't know if it was all posturing and he never wanted to return to the NFL. I don't know if he asked for the moon like we heard that he might have done with the Bears and was turned down. I don't know. But make up your mind and be committed to one or the other because Michigan is not a pit stop. This is not one of those schools where, well, if I have a really good year, then I can get a better job. There's no better job than the University of Michigan for a lot of good coaches.
Yeah.
For a lot of good coaches, there's no better job than that. I would think that someone who was an All-American quarterback there would understand that. You never hear about these kind of distractions happening with Nick Saban. You never hear at the end of the season, after he tried the NFL and came back to Alabama, you never hear at the end of the season, well, I wonder if he'll leave for a different school. Never
heard a little bit of Texas, but he didn't. You went on signing day. Look, timing is everything in life. Let's call a spade a spade. You didn't go on some random day. You went on signing day. I have a hard time believing you did. I think you went up there to take the job if they offered it, and you didn't get offered it.
Gotcha.
Just like we saw in that exclusive footage that you can find jboyshow.com exclusive footage archives.
Yeah.
But I want to move on. College basketball.
Yes.
And I want to say this. I want to go ahead and get this out of the way. Wisconsin and Illinois played last night. Blaine, you took Wisconsin yesterday at +7. Thought it was a great pick. I may have threw a little cash on Wisconsin +6.5. But I don't know which situation had a better chance of happening last night. Wisconsin actually making a three-pointer, or Whoopi Goldberg winning a World War II trivia contest. And this game came down to really one guy. Kofi Cockburn had an unbelievable game, and he put every Wisconsin post player on the jungle gym. Let's roll the clip. You want to see what happens when you play against your dad after talking trash in the kitchen? This is what happens. Yeah, let's go outside, son. I love you. You did great on your math test. Yeah, don't tell your mother. Don't tell your mother. The whole game, 37. And he didn't score a point in the second half for like 12, 13 minutes.
He was 16.
But Wisconsin couldn't hit water if they fell out of a helicopter in the Atlantic Ocean. Give him the numbers, Wayne. What were the numbers on it?
Okay, first Kofi Cockburn was 16 for 18.
16 for 18.
And basically dunked everything and hit a fadeaway
high
jumper,
percentage
which is
shot.
beautiful.
I knew
okay,
that was true,
Wisconsin. First of all, there's bad shooting, there's terrible shooting, and there how did you get a scholarship to come play here shooting?
Yeah.
That's what it is. You
Who's
shot
your dad?
3 for 24
It was bad.
from the three-point line.
We watched the whole game.
From the three-point. That is hard to do. You shot 12% from the three-point line. And number 33, I've never
Kroll
seen.
kid?
Yeah, I've never seen. Man, God, but if I'm watching that, I'm like your dad or something. Like maybe we should go into swimming or something. You know? It's like, maybe this isn't it. But how are these kids were projected a number 1 seed? That's what.
Yeah, well, see, that was my thing, because we're going to talk about the bracketology, and you had a predominant. And look, I get it's one game, but the way you got beat, the shooting, I guess it happens. That was the worst that happened. You know, it was bad, but the way you got dominated down low, and look, Kofi, there's not a lot of Kofis out there, but watching Wisconsin, if Johnny Davis isn't hitting, Brad Davidson, to me, after the first 6 or 7 minutes, stop cutting to the basket.
Yeah.
You're 6'2". You're not Hakeem Olajuwon. Stay outside. He was the only guy that was going to save him. Johnny Davis scored 19 points on like 135 shots.
Like 5 for 22. But you go back, and I understand. You look at Kofi Cockburn, and it's hard to stop. But if you go watch that Vanderbilt, Kentucky game,
oh, watch the way they did
and
Jboy.
watch the way they did Jboy. And sometimes, you know what? You just got to be physical, foul, physical, and just getting somebody.
Get him to the line.
Somebody's head.
I mean,
that's what you got to do. But they were just giving.
He was unstoppable. He's an alien.
They're just giving.
He's from Men in Black.
You know, sometimes you got to have a little pride about yourself.
Agent J went to his house.
What he says, like, has 3 little guys on.
Yeah, there's like 3 little aliens operating him during the game.
Rebound, score,
Yeah,
dunk.
exactly right.
Wisconsin just looked like they couldn't shoot, and they looked soft.
They look soft
They
to
looked
me.
soft to me.
And before the season, Wisconsin, I think they were picked to finish 8th in the Big Ten. And what Greg Gard, and I do want to give a shout out, and you know, Greg Gard's lost family members to cancer. I think his mother has breast cancer right now. But when you watch Wisconsin, talking about the game, if you are going to survive and advance in the NCAA tournament, the shots aren't always going to be falling. Johnny Davis isn't going to go for 40 every night. Brad Davidson isn't going to hit 9 threes every night. And if they have a post presence, you look at a team like Purdue, they've got 2 of them. To me, when I look at Wisconsin, there is a big hole down low for them, and they got exposed, and there is nothing worse as a coach than that coach knowing exactly what you can't stop, and there was nothing Greg Gard could do to stop what he was doing last night, because they didn't take the fight to him. Nope. You got to take the fight to him. That's the only way. And you know what? If he makes 18 or 20 free throws, then so be it. But at one point last night, the only reason Wisconsin was in the game is because Illinois couldn't hit a free throw. They were 3 of 10 at one point during the second half. So I think Wisconsin got a little bit exposed. You know, Kofi, I don't think he's going to be the player of the year. I'm still taking Jboy. But if you're going to let him dominate and walk in your house and sit down and take the remote and have him make you a steak, then he's going to do it every time, because that's what great players do. He knows he can be dominant. He was dominant last night. 16 of 18 speaks for itself. You only hear about that at the free throw line, not on field goals. Walker Kessler kind of did the same thing a little bit in a different way to Alabama when he took like 9 shots and hit 7 of them. That's tough to stop. But there is a great matchup tonight out in the Pac-12. This is a rematch. It's going to be at Arizona. UCLA, a Final Four team from a year ago that returned a decent amount of guys, beat Arizona, beat them up at home a little bit. Now they're going to go play Arizona on the road. They're a 7-point dog in this game. But number one, I think Mick Cronin is a hell of a coach. UCLA's new coach. Man, that guy can coach. They talk about how physical their practices are. It's amazing. You see the best teams, regardless of sport, you hear about people talking about how physical their practices are. And it's not over the top. It's nothing crazy, but always keeping that edge, having them understanding that physicality is a part of the game. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of your nature, and it has to be in our identity for us to win. But this is a hell of a matchup. Arizona, we know they're very talented. A lot of people put them in the top 2 or 3 teams, with Auburn and Gonzaga, who I'm not a believer in. I think both of these teams are better than Gonzaga. I question Gonzaga's physicality, whether it's Drew Timme down low when he faces a guy that's able to push him around, a la Baylor and Gonzaga last year when they got shoved in the locker in front of the whole high school in assembly. So when you look at this game and you look at this matchup, and we'll get to picks in a second, Blaine, do you think UCLA going to Arizona can keep this game close enough to give them a chance at the end, or is Arizona just going to be pissed off enough about losing the way they did the first?
I do. UCLA is a good basketball team.
I love Tiger Campbell.
Yeah. Realistically, you look at UCLA, there's not a lot of weaknesses on this team. And I know, it's at home, but, you got routed by 15, almost 15
We watched
plus. It. And a Johnny Juzang,
that's what I was
the kid's nice.
He is.
From inside out, he can do it in the paint, he can do it for 3, and they're just coached so well. So I think UCLA does cover in this game. But I do think Arizona just might squeeze it out.
At home. You think it's a possession game, Cone?
One name, Johnny Juzang.
He's for real.
Okay, if I learned anything.
Witch. Can we go ahead and call him a witch?
He's of the highest order.
Witch
give him a broom and a wand. Dude's a witch.
Witch plus, man. If I learned anything last tournament, it is to do not bet against Johnny Juzang. And I'll get to that in the picks.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's go ahead and get to picks.
All right.
I'll start this time.
Okay.
I do want to give a shout out, Cone. Right when I thought you couldn't get any dumber. You couldn't make any worse picks. You go and totally redeem yourself.
Cobras. Hey,
Cobras.
Traded it straight up.
Traded it straight up for this hog.
Love it.
2-0 last night.
2-0 last night.
So on nights I do well, I think we should recap our picks.
Yes.
We'll put that in the notes.
It's amazing. Like me, we won't even talk about mine last night.
Yeah, that's fine.
It was a struggle a little bit. I would like to, first off, tell everybody at Oklahoma State and Kansas State, screw you guys. The overhit, it shocked me when it was 39-32 at halftime. I had the under.
You should have known that when Obo hit that almost half-court shot.
I know. It's typically how it goes. Here's my 2 for tonight. Stanford. Give me Stanford plus 3.5 tonight. Harrison Ingram, really like his game. I know that Stanford's not the sexiest team to watch. That they're not the most explosive team, but I've watched them sweep USC. I've watched them play well. When I look at them and I look at them as a team, if the threes aren't falling, they can still find other ways to score. I like Stanford 3.5 tonight, and give me the Colorado-Oregon over 139. Oregon's been on a hot streak. Colorado is hit or miss to me. I think both teams tonight light it up. I like this game at 78-74, maybe a 78-75, maybe an overtime game. So I got Stanford plus 3.5. Give me Colorado, Oregon over 139. Kel, what do you got? Let's go.
All right. So
stay hot.
UCLA
Heat check.
plus 7 at Arizona.
I like it.
Arizona's double-digit loss at UCLA on the road will play a factor in this game. I would not be surprised if Arizona wins this ball game. Emotions are real.
Good energy.
Okay, if it were a pick'em, I wouldn't be touching it. But give me Johnny Juzang in the game plus 7, even on the road. I think they can keep it close enough to cover that. You boys agree?
I agree.
Think
I
so?
like that.
And then I want the Gonzaga over at 150.5, and if San Diego, who they're playing, scores any, then that'd be a bonus. That's what I'm saying. I want Gonzaga over 150, and then San Diego can just add on to that.
How many points do you think Gonzaga scores over 100 again?
I think they can get
They've
to
got
100.
like 115, 110.
They've done like 5.
I think they can get to 100, even though last night I thought Kentucky could get to 100. They did
that
not,
over, though.
But how much fun was watching that game?
Played, man.
You guys pulled it in for me.
Oh, well, at the end, the foul,
baby.
there was like 3 fouls in like a 10-second span. And then finally, Scottie Pippen Jr., way to finish it, my friend. Way to finish it. What do we say? Good teams win.
Great teams cover.
That's exactly
so true.
right.
All right, well, your boy went 1-1 yesterday.
1-1 yesterday.
Again.
The Marquette overhit. Well done there.
I'll take that.
Oh, and you hit the Purdue minus 10.5. That was the other one.
Yes. All right, so I'm going to take USC minus 5.5 versus Arizona State on the road. These teams played like 3 games earlier. USC beat them by 24, but that was at USC. I think Isaiah Mobley is extremely good basketball player, one of maybe the best in the nation. You can put him in that little handful, but I do like USC to cover -5.5. And then we're staying with the overs, baby. I'm staying with the over
season.
I love it. I just can't bet an under. I can't get myself to do it. So I'm taking the UCLA Arizona over at 149. Let's score some points, boys.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a lot faster pace than some people think in this UCLA-Arizona game, too. All right, so there's the picks. We're going to get to one of our favorite segments here. Cody, set it up.
Beyond the game.
Got to go beyond the game.
Beyond the game. We're going to start doing this at least once a week here. We want to highlight some stories that don't officially happen on the court or on the field or on the ice. So you want to take it away?
I'll start it. Andrew Jones, Texas guard in his 6th year, leukemia survivor, decided to take 10% of his NIL, and this is a really great part of NIL, and donate that 10% to the Jimmy V Foundation, which is a cancer foundation named after Jim Valvano. You see Dick Vitale right now is going through it. We send our prayers to him to be strong. Dickie V, if anybody can get through it, you can, baby. He's a PTPer. But I thought that was an unbelievably genuine move from a guy that's been through it. And I thought he had a great quote talking about how these type of foundations gave me the confidence to be able to trust the treatment and get through it and get back to playing basketball. And one of the coolest moments I've ever seen in sports, the year after he beats cancer and comes back, he hits a game-winning 3-pointer. That's one of the coolest moments I've ever seen. And Andrew Jones, good for you.
I love that.
Good for you.
Great. That's a good one.
Okay, we got the Vancouver Canucks. This is so cool to me. Assistant Brian Hamilton. All right, you remember at a hockey game, there's a glass between the fans and the players. All right, he's sitting there like he always does. He said he has a jacket on, he has headphones on listening, and he says a fan puts their phone up against the screen and says, hey, you have a spot on the back of your neck that's worrying me and you need to go to the doctor. That was Nadia Popovich, and she's trying to get into medical school. So Brian Hamilton ends up going to the doctor, and he realized that what's on the back of his neck is a melanoma tumor. And he said he had 3 to 4 years. The doctor said if he wouldn't have got that off in 3 to 4 years, he probably could have died from it. So they end up giving Nadia $10,000 for a medical scholarship.
Get that woman her.
How cool is that?
Wow, she's saving lives.
How cool.
She's saving lives before she got there. All right. On to the NBA. Look, I don't often have a lot of great things to say about the NBA, but the NBA has unveiled the new Kobe Bryant trophy. I think we have some pictures here, okay, which will be awarded to the All-Star Game MVP. I think they did a bang-up job with this. First of all, the decision to make this happen, to honor one of the greatest basketball players of all time, but then the care and the craft that they put into this. I don't have time to list everything they did here, but a few of the big points. It's 8-sided to represent his original number. It has 24 stars, which represents the jersey he retired in, as well as the number of players in the All-Star game. So I think they did a fantastic job, a great tribute to Kobe Bryant. And I miss him still.
I miss him too.
Yeah, I do too. Man, I really like that segment. Really appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It's been another great show. Got some more great stuff coming for you tomorrow as we wrap up the week. Like Tom Crean's career at Georgia, very shortly, we're gone.